My name's Justin Gooch, and I was born and raised here in Kingsport. Born to a mother. She was an addict. She was very young. So honestly, when I look back, it's she really didn't understand how to be a mother. She had me in '88, and then my sister was born in '90. And by the time my sister was 1 year old and I was 3, she had lost us both. My aunt and my uncle took me in, and loved me like their own. I've actually gotten what I call my brothers and sisters. They're really my cousins, but I've gotten 2 sisters and a brother. I gained 2 sisters and a brother whenever they adopted me. And it was a pretty good childhood. It was a pretty normal childhood. I felt like family to them. There was never really a whole lot of distance, oh, he's the adopted child. So I had a pretty decent childhood. We grew up over on Robertson Street, near Cloud Apartments. Pretty normal childhood. Loved to play basketball, loved to play sports, football, baseball. Went to the Boys and Girls Club. Played sports there, and then I started in middle school playing for the severe middle school team. But my biological mother, she had gotten in trouble when I was 3 years old when she lost us. And she was in and out of jail most of my life, in prison. The earliest memories I have of my mom, she would call us from jail or prison. I would go visit her through the glass, and I remember going and picking her up from prison whenever she was released. So a lot of my childhood memories with her is things that she would crochet from jail or prison, and boxes she would make me and send me. And that's really the only relationship I had with her as a young child. But as I got a little bit older and 12, 13 years old, she was released from prison. Doing really well. I was in sports, and she come to watch one of my games, and I would go over there and stay the night with her on the weekends, me and my little sister. My little sister was adopted by my grandmother. So my aunt and my uncle took me, and my grandma took her. So we grew up in 2 different households. Still kind of close. My mom and dad that raised me, they did really good with me. My dad, he was always a hard worker. He did the best to teach me a good work ethic. Distant emotionally. He showed his love through provision. He showed his love through providing for me, When I was 9, 10 years old, I started hanging out with my friends more. I didn't want to really go hunting as much because that's what he liked to do. He had a farm in Hawkins County. He liked to hunt and farm, and he had cows, and I did that with him a lot when I was younger. But when I got a little bit older, preteen years, I started wanting to hang out with my friends more. And I think there was a lot of anger that stemmed from that, and we just grew farther apart, and I guess we just really didn't have a relationship. It's like he was always angry, and it really it really hurt my feelings, because we were close when I was really young, And it was like the older I got, the angrier he got at me. And there was some physical abuse there. Started like building anger in me. When I was coming into being a teenager, just never really felt loved and embraced by him. My mom, she was always there. She always loved on me. I remember on the weekends she would tell me to come lay in her lap, and she'd like pick my face and scratch my back and stuff. And so I was loved, just me and my dad. We just, it was a tread lightly kind of relationship. But when my biological mother was released from prison, it was really like a fresh start for me and her. Oh. What kid, no matter who's around to take care of them, what kid doesn't love their mother, And my biological mother, when she was released and started doing good, we started building our relationship. Things were going great. I would stay the night with her on the weekends. My mom and dad that raised me, they didn't care. They let me go over there as much as I wanted to, So my mom and dad that raised me, my aunt and my uncle, my mom, which was my aunt, her and my biological mother were sisters. And my aunt never kept me from my biological mother. She never tried to keep that relationship from happening and blossom. You know what I'm saying? So I would go over there on the weekends. She would cook me like my favorite breakfast in the mornings, and I got to where I went over there most weekends, and it was starting to be a really good thing. I started to get to know her more. She started to get to know me. All the things that we had missed out on was starting to be restored. And I remember that was going on for a year or so. And to be honest with you, it got to a point to where it was fewer and farther between. Like, it would be every other weekend, and then it'd be like once a month on the weekend. And I noticed that it was a little different. Like, she was a little more distant than normal, not so involved with being interested in me. And my mom and dad moved to Churchill my 8th grade year. And it was the summer before I was going to be a freshman, and I went to Dobbins Bennett. And they moved to Churchill, and I was going to have to go to volunteer. And I asked my mom and dad, I said, hey, can I stay here with my grandma so I can go to Dobbins Bennett still? And they were like, yeah, that's fine. And it was the weekend before I was going to start my freshman year. I had a friend over, and I remember a couple nights before I was to start high school, my aunt Diane and my grandmother, they come and woke me up. I had a friend over, staying the night that weekend. And they told me to come downstairs. It was like 7 a.m. It was really early. It was that they didn't do that, They brought me to the kitchen and they told me that my mother had passed away. They told me that my mother had passed away in a car accident the night before. And I don't know, something. It's like something broke in me. I think that was the first time that I felt hopelessness. Within those next couple days, my whole mindset and my whole life was like shattered. It's like this piece was missing out of my life for a long time, and I got it back, and then it was taken away again, but this time for good. And it created anger. Like there was some anger that was being built up already in my life. I had this feeling of not belonging because of the distance between me and my dad. But when my biological mom passed away, that just created a hole, an anger, a resentment, and a hopelessness that took a long time to feel. So I've talked a lot about my biological mother. I guess I'll go into talking about my biological father. I didn't really ever get to meet him when I was growing up. My mom and dad that raised me, they had reached out to him here and there to try to see if he wanted to see me, but I guess there was never any response. And then when I was 19 years old, I think was the first time I met him, and we weren't vibing. Like there was no like interest in me. I was expecting him to be like, hey, what's going on? Like, tell me about yourself. And there was none of that. So that really kind of made me angry in a sense. But after my mother had passed away, my biological mother, we went to her funeral, and I think that was the first time that I boo-hoo bawled that part in my life as a 14-year-old kid. I think that's the first time that I boo-hoo bawled for like 45 minutes or an hour. And I remember sitting there and all these things were going through my head, like I'll never really get to know you more. I'll never really get to hang out with you anymore, But my main thing was like, why would God do this? why would God take you away from me? You were doing so good, and that was really where that was really where the brokenheartedness was coming in. Like, I couldn't understand why she had started doing good and been doing good for so long, that just for all of it to be taken away and swept away from her. And I guess that was the turning point in my life. I guess you could say I went from making things work emotionally and enjoying life with my friends, playing ball, to not caring. I loved and enjoyed playing basketball, and I was on the freshman team at DB, played that whole year, but I got into drinking and smoking a little weed, and that was all right. I just done it because everybody else was doing it, really. And then my sophomore year came, and my mom wanted me to move back to Church Hill with them. So that was a huge change for me. I had lost my mother right before I went into my freshman year of high school, and then a year later I had to switch schools and recreate all these friendships and get to know new people, and it was just really a hard couple of years. I went and tried out for the basketball team there, and everything was going good, and my partying started to take a toll. I started to drink more. I started to drink during school. I started to take pills and do all that stuff. And I got kicked off of the basketball team. And when that happened, it was like strike three for me, I guess. I was already careless, angry, bitter, running on fumes, empty. And I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I was maintaining, I was still going to school most of the time at that point. But then after that happened, after I got kicked off the team, that's when all hell broke loose. My mindset went from 50% of being eager to do and live and be better, went from 50% to 1%. Like, started partying more, got in trouble within maybe not even a year after that. I got arrested while I was in school. They come and got me out of the classroom for aggravated assault. I went to JCDC for a little while and ended up getting bonded out, and went to court, and the judge agreed to drop it down to assault if I did probation and did all these things. And never stopped partying, never stopped acting wild. And then my senior year, I got kicked out of high school. And that was like, so, I was in a state of mind where I was like, I don't care, whatever. I wasn't going to school anyways. That sounds bad, but so I got kicked out of school, so I had no need of having to be somewhere from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. I had started working, a year or so prior to that, and I was working at like McDonald's or a couple years prior to that, McDonald's and Pizza Hut, and I went to work, and I made money the right way, but I was also selling drugs, doing drugs, selling drugs to keep my high going. And then when I got kicked out of high school, I was wide open, staying at my mom's house, stealing anything that I could do to get high, stealing from stores, selling drugs. Mind you, I was working, so, I didn't have rent to pay. I didn't have any of that. And I was working like 30 hours a week at Pizza Hut, and that goes to show you how many drugs I was doing, because I selling them and stealing. It was just got out of control, and I started getting in trouble and going to jail for theft and getting caught, public drunkenness, DUI, pretty much anything you could go to jail for, I went to jail for. I was just searching. I was lost. I was trying to hide and push down those dark feelings. I didn't want to be sober because I didn't want to think about my reality. I was 18 years old, kicked out of school, lost everything. As an 18-year-old, I'm sitting here in despair like that. What does an 18-year-old really have? Like, when you, from the outside looking in, but when it comes to being 18 years old and being a kid, the little things really matter. I know basketball's a minor thing, but it was my life, I know my mother hadn't been in my life a whole lot, but she was there right before she passed away, It was just years of beat down. And what a lot of people would look at me and say, hey, you were responsible for your actions. I was responsible for my actions. But for those few years of my life, I couldn't win for losing. And that really set the tone for the next 13, 14 years of my life. The charges kept getting worse. I got caught in public drunkenness at first. Then I got caught stealing from stores. Then I got caught drinking and driving. Then I got caught with pills, selling pills. And then I started breaking into houses, breaking into cars, living from couch to couch, from Cloud Apartments to Model City to Lee Apartments to Miller Village. So much recklessness that I ended up being homeless. I had run out of friends, I had run out of family, I had run out of options. And I was in a mindset that I could care less. It was probably, besides right before I went to rehab, it was probably one of the darkest year or so of my life. I was actually sleeping under a couple of different bridges here in Kingsport. My sister and brother and mom and grandma, none of them wanted anything to do with me. I had stole from them. I had went and just destroyed their trust in me. So I was on my own, and I didn't care. I was at a point in my life where I was like, I have nothing to live for. I am an addict. Nobody wants me around, and I don't want to be around nobody. Yeah, there's a couple of bridges here in Kingsport that I slept under. There's a couple of patches of woods here in Kingsport that I slept in. And I ended up getting in some trouble in Hawkins County, felonies. I got caught breaking into a car, and they let me out on bond. But before they let me out on bond, I was in Hawkins County Jail, and I got into a fight with a couple of different guys. I was jumped and I got my jaw broke. So I got bonded out and I had to get my mouth wired shut. And within a month of me getting out from Hawkins County, I was brought into Sullivan County on 11 felony charges. And I got in there and they booked me and did all that. And I went into the cell, and I remember about 2 or 3 days later, I'm withdrawn and my jaw is wired shut. I'm sitting in Sullivan County Jail with 11 felonies, like $100,000 bond. I wasn't getting out. My mouth's wired shut. I'm pill sick. And I just remember laying on my bunk, and I looked up, as sober as I had been in years. And I was like, I knew this was a life that was going to happen to me. And from that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to be here for a while. So I just settled in. I ended up getting convicted of all the charges from Hawkins County and Sullivan County and getting a 6-year sentence. And that was the end of 2011 when I got caught. And then I didn't get released until 2016. But over my course of the 5 years that I was in prison, it was not productive. I just wanted to find a way to get high because, you know, a lot of people don't realize this, but in jail and in prison, it's a lot easier to get high in there than it is out here. Your drug dealers in the next cell, you know, you got to actually drive down the road to get it out here, you know. So it was just an easy way for me to spend my 5 years in prison getting high. But before I was released September 14th, 2016. And I remember specifically the first time that I had actually truly prayed to God. I was 27 years old. I had no kids, thank God. I had just spent, not only did I do that 5 years in prison, I had spent 9 months here, a year there, 3 months here, ever since I was 18. So from the time I was 18 till the time I was 27, I probably had 1 year here and there, 2 months here, 3 months there, that I was out of jail. So I know I'm going to be released here in a couple of days, and I get on my knees in my cell. And I went to church here and there when I was a kid. My grandmother, she always brought me to church. But I never really embraced it. But I knew that when I was praying, that something was listening. I didn't know who this God was, but I was still an addict, actively using, had no intentions of stopping. But I sent up a Hail Mary prayer, and I said, God, this was my prayer. I said, God, I just want a normal life. I don't want to be like my mom. I just want a normal life with a wife and kids, and to be a good dad. I guess I was always meant to be a dad. Because even though I didn't want kids when I was younger, I knew that if I had kids, I would be the best dad I could. And so I get released from jail or prison. And I get out, and it's all crazy. It's it's a culture shock for sure, because when I went in, only the elite riches of the world had a touchscreen phone. You know what I mean? Like, it was crazy. I had a flip phone, and anyways, when I got out of prison, everybody had touchscreen phones, so I got me a phone, and it was just a different world. 5 years, I know that's not a long time to a lot of people, but in the culture, technologically, and all that other stuff, it's a big deal. But I got out, went and visited my family. Let me tell you a crazy thing, the craziest thing. So when you get out of prison, they give you a ride to the bus station. And I was in prison at Northeast Correctional Complex in Mountain City. And they give me a ride from there to the Johnson City Greyhound station. And when I got there, I called my grandmother, which was my biological dad's mom. When I met my dad, I met my grandmother too, his mom, my biological father. And she was just so interested in me. This is kind of something that I left out, but my grandma Sandy, ever since I met her and she found out about me, and we actually met when I was 19 when I met my dad, she has relentlessly loved me and been such a great grandma. Not to say anything about my other grandmas. My other grandmas were great. They loved me and they were always good to me. Especially my nan. My dad that raised me's mom. She wasn't my blood, but she always loved me like I was her own. But my biological father's dad, or mom, my grandma Sandy, from the time she met me, she loved me. And I guess that's kind of the reason that this happened. But whenever I got out of prison, I called my grandma Sandy. I couldn't get a hold of anybody else. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna send your dad to pick you up." And I'm sitting here like, wow. You know what I mean? But he was the only available person. And I was like, okay, whatever. Just have him come get me away from this Greyhound station. I just got out of prison. Like, get me out of here. Let's go to La Coretta. You know what I mean? Like, but my biological father, that I had only met maybe a handful of times in my life, picked me up from the Greyhound station after I got out of prison. And to say the least, it was an awkward ride. Get home from prison, just kind of go visit everybody in my family that I hadn't seen in a long time. It was the first couple weeks, and then I go and stay with my sister. And me and my sister, we've always been kind of close, but we always get to where, like, we argue. And I was still an addict, she was an addict, and it was just not a good combination. So I reached out to this girl I went to school with, this hot chick I know, on Facebook, and I asked her if she wanted to hang out. I knew her in high school. We flirted and all that in high school. But I reached out to her and asked her if she wanted to come hang out, and she came over to my sister's and hung out one night. It's kind of a funny story because I was broke. Like, I didn't have any money. I didn't have a job yet. I hadn't even been out of prison for, I want to say, a week. And they give you this little $75 check whenever you leave. And I still had like $40 from it. And she come out to visit me. My sister lived in Greenville. And she blew a tire on the way out to come and see me. It was like 12 o'clock at night. And so me and my sister's boyfriend went and picked her up and brought her to my sister's house. And we all hung out. And I went the next morning and bought her a tire with pretty much all the money I had. And she thought that was the sweetest thing. And got her tire back fixed to where she could drive around. And she seen that it was not a very healthy environment that I was in. I just got out of prison, and I reunited with an old high school friend, and we hit it off really good. We had fun together. She asked me to come live with her, so of course I'm going to come live with her. Have you seen her? No, I'm joking. But so we just started dating, and within a month of us, not even a month of us dating really, it was like 3 weeks after we started dating, I asked her to marry me. And it's kind of crazy because, you know, looking back now, this is how I knew God had his hand on my life. I knew that if I was going to be sleeping with this girl, that I had to be married to her. And I had never had that boundary before in my life. I knew I loved her. She loved me. I knew she would do anything for me. And I just knew I wanted to marry her. And I felt the conviction too, which is, looking back on it, I knew what it was, but at the time I was like, what is going on here? You know, like, I'm living with her. I've never had this problem in my life. I never thought about living with a girl or dating a girl and all this stuff but I felt genuinely convicted, and I loved her, so I asked her to marry me a month after I got out of prison. And we got married on October the 15th, 2016. I got out of prison September 14th, so a month before that. So yeah, here we are married, living in an apartment together. And in my mind, I'm like, I want to have kids, but I don't have a job. So how am I going to do this, And after a few months, we found us an apartment in Gray. And we moved in. But right before we left my mom's house, we found out my wife was pregnant with my first little girl. Before me and my wife got together, she had a son. His name's Sage. When me and her got together, she told me she had a son, and I was like, that's cool, that's great. I got to really start learning how to be a dad. And she found out she was pregnant a few months later. We moved into our new apartment, and we moved from Churchill to Gray. And I found a job that was right down the road. It was a landscaping job. And it just seemed like everything was starting to kind of fall into place. Even though I was still addicted, I was still trying to maintain and trying to do what I thought that a man did. Gets a job, take care of his family, pays the bills, That's what I understood what a man was. And little did I know that that's only a percentage of it, But I was doing the best I could as far as making sure I went to work. I was taught a good work ethic when I was younger, so I knew, I'd always do the best I could. I was a hard worker, but I was still an addict. I was still struggling with addiction. So much so my wife caught me with needles. She didn't really understand how deep my addiction was. She knew that I liked to party. She knew that I liked to drink. She knew that I liked to pop pills. She knew that I liked to do all that when we first got together. But she didn't understand the depth. She didn't understand the depth of my addiction. She didn't understand the depth of my brokenness. I was just trying to start over when I got out of prison. And I thought this was a second chance. You know, this is a second chance at life. So I grabbed it by the horns, even though I was using, got married, had, got a job, had a kid. But the whole time, that first year of our marriage, I was not a very good husband. Like I was trying my best. I thought I was doing good, but I really wasn't. If I didn't have any pills, I was not a happy camper. I would sleep. I mean, I would still go to work and all that, but I would take all my frustrations and my anger out and yell and get mad and still broken, but trying to mask it and trying to live a life of normalcy. But we had our first little girl together. We had little Sage too, and my wife and Sage's dad had an agreement where he would stay with us for a week and then he would stay with his dad for a week. And that was all good until it was time for him to go to school. And when he started going to school, he started to go to school over there. And I knew that was hard on my wife. And I wasn't making things any easier. Really, the only thing she didn't have to worry about was the fact that the bills were paid. Other than that, there was always something, with me. We both had our own problems from past relationships, from our families. And we were just two broken people that were trying to give our kids a normal life, like outside of what we had experienced. And things just got worse and worse. We both were just trying to hold something together that was eventually going to break. And so we had our second little girl, Phoenix, in 2019. And at this time in my addiction, I was out there. Like I would have moments in our marriage, like I would have moments where I would get so far out there, I'd be shooting everything I could get my hands on, and then like I would come to the end of myself and I would pull back. I would still be doing pills, but I felt like I was doing better if I wasn't shooting them up. And that made me feel good about myself, but the thing is, it just left that open door. Like just because you're not putting a needle in your arm, you still need them to wake up in the morning. You're still snorting them. So this went on from 2016 till 2021. The beginning of 2021, me and my wife got into an argument, and I went to jail. And I was in there for a few days, and I bonded myself out. And I knew something had to change. I knew it was either I'm either going to be like my mom or not. like it kept playing over in my head those few days I was in jail. And then when I got out of jail, my wife, she gave me an ultimatum. And she said, you can either get sober, go to a rehab and get sober, or you can not see us again. And up until that point of my life, I had skated by, like always by the skin of my teeth. I would always, okay, you know, I talked my way out of things, and never really before that had anything to lose in all of my life. Every time I would get in trouble, the only thing I had to lose was freedom. And who cares? I was homeless here and there, so I had a bed to sleep in. I had food to eat. I didn't have to worry about that. But up until that point in my life, I had never been at risk for losing something that I cared so much about. And I honestly think that's what brought me back. I wasn't a great dad, even though I wanted to be a good dad. I was just there. I was so worried about my addiction and all the other things, you know. But that's when I feel like God met me through my wife. It's either you're going to change or not. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this thing. Never been to rehab. Didn't have any idea what it meant to go to a faith-based rehab. We had looked all over, and I had just gotten fired from my job a couple months before that, so I didn't have insurance. I didn't have any lifelines. I didn't have any money. I mean, I had a little bit of money saved up, but not $50,000 for a rehab, you know. And we found this little recovery program that was faith-based in Elizabethton for $1,000. And I was like, faith-based? Okay, that's cool, but it's a rehab for $1,000. I need to go and get myself clean. And the funny thing is, like, you know, I went to go get sober because I'd heard about people doing Alcoholics Anonymous and struggling their whole life with trying to stop drinking and trying to stop doing drugs. I went to Recovery Soldiers Ministries to get clean. I went to rehab to get sober, but I had no idea that I was going to get set free. February 17th, 2021. My wife took me up to that rehab. It was real late at night. And I went into that rehab. And I was withdrawn. I was withdrawn. It was freezing cold. It was snowing a little bit. It was so cold that night, I remember. Because we got out, it's right near Ridgewood up in Elizabethton. So there's like mountains on both sides. So that cold wind's coming through there like viciously. And it's kind of snow flurrying. And I got out of the car and went into the, I started to grab my luggage, and I started to go into the rehab, into the office, me and my wife. And when I walked in there, I don't know, it just felt so warm. It felt so warm. Not only like the heat that was on in the building, but it was something I never felt before. And we get in there and we start talking to the director, Dylan, the intake coordinator. And there's just guys coming in. coming in through the office and taking care of whatever it was that they needed to take care of. And they were all introducing themselves and said, "Hey man, I'm so-and-so. If you need anything, let me know. I love you," And every single one of them that come through there, they're like, "Hey man, we love you," And I was just like, this is a weird place. You know what I mean? Like, why are these dudes telling me they love me? All these guys have told me they love me. This is kind of weird. But as I'm sitting there, I feel this love. Like, indescribable. In my mind, I'm thinking, these guys are weird, telling me they love me. But I feel an embrace. I was dope sick, like I said a minute ago. I had no withdrawal symptoms. Like, I was warm. My hands weren't clammy like they were 20 minutes, an hour or whatever before that. I had completely stopped withdrawing. When I walked in there, I was writing my name down like this. By the end of me filling out my form, my hand was as calm as it could be. I felt that was my first experience with the presence of God, I believe. That was the first time that I truly felt unconditional love. And I didn't know what it was at that particular time. But I went into the rehab. I kissed my wife goodbye. She left. It was very emotional. I went in there into the dorms and I put my stuff down and got in the bed. Slept like a baby. And that don't happen after day 5. Day 5 or 6 or whatever off of drugs. And the next day I woke up and it was chaos because I had just come into this dorm and there's 20 other guys in this 150 square foot room. You know what I mean? It's like 10 foot by 15 foot. And it's just a big box and there's 20 people in there. 5:30 in the morning they wake up and I'm like, I open my eyes and I'm like, what did I get myself into? Like, what is going on? So I get up and everybody's introducing themselves to me and everything went good that first day. And I remember I was sitting, because they have a lot of Bible studies during the day. I remember sitting there that first day and, hearing all these teachers coming in and teach, and I'm hearing about this guy, Jesus, and see, I had never understood the gospel. I always thought people that went to church had it all figured out. But these lessons that I'm listening to this first day that I'm in rehab, it's nothing like what I had thought I knew about God. So the day goes on and we're done with Bible studies. They have Bible studies all through the day. Some people go to work, some people stay there. When you first get to Recovery Soldiers, you are pretty much planted there until you get a little sobriety time. And dinner that night, we all come into the classroom, and that's where we eat. There's like 40 people there, 40 guys, And we eat about 5:30. And I've been hearing about this Jesus guy all day long, and I know that I heard in the past that he died for our sins and this, that, and the other, but the more classes I went to, I got this understanding of the fact that the gospel message isn't about what you can do. It isn't about how far you've gone. It isn't about how bad you've messed up. It isn't anything to do with what you did. The gospel message is what he did. That no matter how broken, addicted, how sick, how many years in prison you had done, that none of that mattered. That the true reason that Jesus came was to die in our place, to live a perfect life in our place, and to show us that we can be raised in new life with him, you know. And when I heard this, like, throughout these classes all day, I kind of started putting the dots together. Like, I used to think that I wasn't good enough to be saved or go to church. Like, I always felt inadequate. When the truth is, we all are, you know? So that night, I went to the director, or the intake coordinator, whatever it was, and I said, man, can you help me understand what I've been hearing all day? And he shared the gospel with me. And I came to the realization that my flaws, my failures, my past mistakes couldn't stop me from being saved and for God to love me. And so I gave my life to the Lord that day, that night, and I got baptized that night too. And I remember when I got baptized. Now, when I got saved, when I repeated after Dylan the sinner's prayer and I confessed my sins and asked Jesus into my heart to be the Lord of my life, like, I felt a weight come off of me. But then I went and got baptized just right after that. And when I got baptized, it was just, all of it was just gone. And I've never been the same. And after that day, I really started diving into the Word, started seeking God, praying, listening to these Bible studies, taking notes, got myself a Bible, you know, and started learning as much as I could about Him. You know, this guy that came and lived for me, you know, and died in my place, you know, to give me a chance. I wanted to know everything I could. Because for a long time, you know, I was angry with him. Because of my mom, because of me having to switch schools, because of me getting kicked off a team, getting kicked out of high school. But I look back and I realize that everybody has a choice to make in life. You know, I was mad at God for so long because I thought that it was Him that was doing it, Him that was this and Him that was that. But He gives us free will in this life, to choose Him, to not choose Him, to use drugs, to not use drugs. And there, for a couple weeks after I got out of the rehab, me and my wife weren't together. We were separated. And it was weird because I'd been with her for a long time and we weren't together. We ended up getting back together the next couple of days, started talking things out, trying to work on things. And it started to run a little smoother. You know, it was still new to us, and us getting back together, and but for the next year or two, we were trying to make it work, but not getting to the bottom of our problems and our issues. So things started running a little smoother. We started to talk things out. And I remember Father's Day was coming up, and she asked me what I wanted for Father's Day. And I told her that the only present I wanted was for her to go to church with me. Because I had started attending Preaching Christ Church right after I got out of rehab. And I was bringing the girls with me, but she wasn't coming. And that was what I wanted for Father's Day, was for her to come to church with me. And she came. And then a couple months later, she started attending Celebrate Recovery with me. We started meeting people here at the church, making friends here at the church, started working with Daniel in Celebrate Recovery, and now for the last few years, this has been our home church. It's really opened up doors for us to have people in our lives that can teach us and guide us how to be a husband and a wife, a dad and a mom. You know, my wife, she has grown exponentially here in the last few years, helping out with a lot of women here that come to Celebrate Recovery, and some of the women that come to the church. Me, myself, I have been, for the last 18 months, been in the ordination process. I have been studying my butt off to become an ordained minister. And I'll be done with that here soon. I've just got a couple of books left. But the best part about, since I've come to the Lord, I love that me and my wife have started to come into a relationship with God, and we started following the Lord together. But the best part about it is the fact that we are starting to be a better husband and a better wife to one another. You know, a lot of people don't really realize, but being married is hard. You know, it takes a lot of forgiveness. It takes a lot of dying to yourself. But when the Lord is working on us as parents, it's also, or as husband and wife, He's also working on us as parents. And our kids come to church with us. We get to worship together. So God has been working in our marriage and in our parenthood, working on me as a husband, on her as a wife. And He's given us a third little girl into the world. I know we've got a lot of them. But yeah, He's really given me, as a dad, a whole new chance. Because my first two, I was in addiction whenever they were born. But this last one, I can really enjoy and embrace being a dad from the ground up. You know, But through His grace and through His power, He has changed me. He's changed my wife, and He's continuing to work on us. But He's making us an example to our children. You know, I was bound for a very long time. I was addicted. I was broken, lost. I had no idea how I was gonna make it to age 25, make it to age 30. But when I went to rehab and when God revealed Himself to me, I was actually set free. Like, I wasn't just sober, I was set free. You know, I dreaded the fact that I was going to have to fight this addiction the rest of my life because I knew I needed to get sober. But I had no idea that God was just going to take that away from me. And being sober and being saved and being a child of God, what it means to me and what Jesus means to me is a second chance, a third chance, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. But what He means to me is a new life. It means embracing your weakness because He's the only one that can make you strong. Jesus to me is life. He is love. And He's understanding. See, a lot of people don't really realize, like, we know we do wrong. We know we're messed up. We know we've failed. But a lot of people don't really realize that that's okay. Jesus doesn't expect you to be perfect. He just wants your heart. And to be honest with you, a lot of people don't understand the gospel message, and I didn't either. But when I was burdened and I was chained and shackled, He came and grabbed me by the hand and said, "It's okay. I know what you've done. I know what you've been through. But I paid the price for it all. You don't have to worry about that no more. Because I'm going to change you. And I'm not going to change you for the whole world to see you from the outside and think, oh, you look good. I'm going to change you from the inside. And I'm going to make you good." That's what He means to me.